What's going on? It's your boy Bowie here, back at it again, talking about some more political stuff. Um, so, what's the topic of this video? Well, as you watch some Combat League footage that I recorded earlier today, I want to talk to y'all about the importance of not being a political partisan. The short term for that is don't be a hack. So, let me break it all the way down. Obviously, we have two major political parties in this country, the Democrats and the Republicans. There's a number of third parties, such as the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, various other parties whose name I can't recall right now, but point of the matter is there's two big games in town. And because of this, a lot of people tend to, play partisan with their favorite or preferred team. People tend to look at politics like it's a sport or even a wrestling match where one guy's the face, the other guy's the heel. They look at politics the same way. One party is the face party and the other party's a heel party, aka good guys and bad guys, good versus evil, that kind of thing. Problem with that is that's very far removed from reality. And what is the reality? The reality is that both of these parties have decided that they are going to cater to the very richest Americans, corporations, CEOs, and industries in this country and leave the rest of us out to dry. That is who their agenda is catered towards. At least their policies. Now, they'll both use the rhetoric of their voting base to try to cajole them into voting for them. But if you look at the policies, it's very, very evident whom they serve. And so when you have regular people sitting up here saying, "Oh, but the Republicans are terrible. Oh, but the Democrats are so terrible. Those damn libtards." And they're not looking at the big speck of dirt in the eyes of their own party members or their favorite politicians. They are, in fact, being useful idiots for partisans. Now, I used to think that, the Democrats were less partisan than the Republicans are. And to an extent, that still is somewhat true. Very somewhat. Like, if you talk to regular folks, you realize fairly quickly that, most people that lean Democratic are at least willing to acknowledge the faults of people in their party. Whereas if you talk to a conservative, they just pretend that they either pretend that their guys are perfect, or the accusations made up against them are illegitimate or lies, or they just straight up wave it off like, "Oh, we're not voting for an angel." They kind of do that kind of thing. But I learned that Democratic voters can be heavily partisan too. I learned that firsthand during the past election of 2020. Because I did what I'm going to suggest to you and everybody that watches this video that you should do. You should do your research on your candidates before deciding to give them your vote. There isn't a candidate alive that just deserves your vote just because they're on the ballot. Period. They got to earn it. I don't give a damn who they are. I don't care what party they represent. I don't care who their opponent is. I don't care what the quote-unquote stakes are. These politicians are in politics to serve us. That is why they are there. They are there to improve our lives in ways that we cannot. And there are ways that the federal government can make the lives of ordinary working people dramatically better. One way is reducing or even eliminating student loan debt. During the coronavirus pandemic, Trump suspended federal student loan payments. That had been going on since, I want to say, April of last year, April of 2020. That improved people's lives. He didn't really tout that as something that he did, and really, it's the right thing to do, so he shouldn't really use it for political points. But if he wanted to, he could have said, hey, I froze student loan payments during the coronavirus pandemic. And frankly, they ought to be eliminated, because it's wrong to sit here and brainwash an entire generation of young students that, hey, you got to go to college. Whether or not you can pay for it is irrelevant. Go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. All these kids go to college. Most of them can't pay for it, and they wind up being $20,000, $30,000 in the hole after they graduate, and the jobs that you said would be there if they went to school are not there for them. I have friends that got whole ass, shiny ass degrees from, fairly expensive private universities, and they're not working in their field at all. They making decent money now, I ain't gonna lie, you know what I'm saying? They making some straight money, but they're not in their field, and most of that money goes to paying off those thousands and thousands of dollars of student loan debt. And that don't make no sense. That doesn't make sense. You're punishing people for investing in their future. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a good thing that federal student loans are suspended. Now we're under a new president, and I don't know if Biden plans on continuing to suspend them, or if he's just going to eliminate them outright. Frankly, he should eliminate them outright. Then he'll get credit from me. But if he doesn't, and he allows federal student loans to resume as though everything is all gravy, he's going to hear about it from me. I'm not going to be quiet and pretend like, oh, he's doing such a good job because he's not Trump. No, I'm going to call his ass out and say he did a terrible thing. How the hell you going to let Trump outflank you in doing something popular and righteous for the people? You know what I'm saying? But that's the difference between me and the typical partisan. So I've been using this word. What's a partisan? Let me define partisan for you. A partisan is somebody who is biased in favor or against a particular group of individuals. And in the realm of politics, they defend the very same actions from their preferred in-group that they would condemn from the opposite in-group. So, prime example. When the coronavirus first got underway in America, conservatives had floated the idea that coronavirus was perhaps leaked from a lab in Wuhan, China. That it didn't come from bats. The Chinese government made it in a lab, blah, blah, blah. Democrats and the mainstream media, which does lean liberal, they roundly criticize them for it. And frankly, they should criticize, because it kind of sounds racist, and it's very accusatory to say something like that without any proof. However, a year later, now we're in 2021, we have all these people that have been vaccinated under Joe Biden and stuff like that. Now we have Democratic pundits talking about the possibility of coronavirus having been leaked from a lab. So when Trump and his people were saying it was dead ass wrong, and you criticized them, now you're saying it and it's all good. They still don't have any evidence of this. There's no direct proof. They didn't find any conclusive data that shows why they're able to change their tune. You know, any evidence that they have discovered yet is, you know, I ain't gonna say it's weak, but it's circumstantial at best. But that's my point. If you wouldn't let your other team or the other team get away with a certain thing, but you defend it when your team does it, guess what? You're a partisan. You know what I'm saying? If there's certain things that you'll dismiss when your people do it, but you wouldn't let the other people slide if they did that, you're being partisan. You're being biased. And that's exactly the wrong attitude to have, because what that does is it prevents any kind of objective critical analysis of the actual policy positions and, you know, objective histories that these politicians have had. And when I engaged in my research in order to decide who I'm voting for, I found disturbing things in both the pasts of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Well, let me say this outright. I was never going to vote for Trump. I don't give a good goddamn. That just wasn't going to happen. Hell no. Aside from having terrible rhetoric on the campaign trail, um, I know his history. The man, I mean, how the hell do you get sued by the Nixon administration for being racist? You know, how do you fraud people, fraud students that go to Trump University? How do you cheat your builders when you're out here building casinos in Jersey City and stuff like that? How do you do those things? How do you sit here and downplay how much you make on in federal taxes so that you can, you know, not receive any kind of tax rate, and then try to sit there and hide your tax records as president? How do you not disclose that information? You know what I'm saying? How do you advocate grabbing women's vaginas without their permission, bro? How do you sleep with a damn porn star while your wife is pregnant? How do you sit here and claim that your daughter has nice legs, and if she wasn't your daughter, you might be dating her? Like, what kind of man are you? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I knew those things about Trump, I knew for certain he would never get my vote. But the question was, could I stomach the nerve to vote for Biden? And when I looked at his objective ass history, and I found out that not only was he the author of the 1994 crime bill, he pushed for this crime bill in multiple administrations. He pushed the Reagan administration to be tougher on black criminals on the topic of drugs. He pushed for tougher sentences, you know, more federal guidelines, more police. He wanted to look tough on crime. And he advocated for this fiercely. I've seen the footage. I've read the documents. It's like his greatest claim to fame. But then before that, you come to find out he's out here working with segregationists to stop the integration of school buses. I'm like, huh? What? What? You know, and he has the nerve to go on the Breakfast Club and say that if you can't decide whether to vote for Trump or Biden, you ain't black. And he code switched as he said it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you want to sit here and throw black people under the bus in your way, way past, and then demand the black vote and try to do this in our own vernacular? Get the fuck out of here. You're garbage. You're garbage. You're garbage. Um, and then and then another thing about Biden that I discovered is that he has a history of telling big ass lies about things. He also has a history of plagiarism. As a matter of fact, the year I was born, 1988, he had to drop out of the presidential race because of plagiarism. He sat there and stole big parts of some European politician's speech. Like he just straight up ripped it from dude and tried to put himself in the speech. You know what I'm saying? When he was first confronted about it, he said that he didn't do it. But once the tape and the evidence had appeared, he had no choice but to but to fess up and stuff, you know? And then he also lied about graduating first in his class and all that kind of stuff. Come to find out, he graduated towards the last of his class, so he's sort of a dummy in that regard, you know what I'm saying? Like, the guy's a liar. And that's important because if he'll lie when he ain't got power, imagine the kind of lies he'll tell when he's the most powerful man in the world. You understand? Um, we were already lied into a regime change war in Iraq, and we're still there 20 some odd years later. We don't need more of that. So I dared to do the bare modicum of research that is required or should be required of everybody that calls themselves a responsible, nonpartisan citizen in determining, okay, which candidate is actually deserving of my vote. And in doing so, a lot of my, I would say fellow blue voters, but I'm not a blue voter no more. But a lot of blue voters that I knew that agreed with me on a lot of policies, they came after me talking about something. They were disappointed and you're not going to get anything under Trump if he wins again, and you're wasting your vote. Any vote not for Biden is a vote for Trump. Like, I got attacked with all kinds of stupidity. It was ridiculous. And it was very, very surprising. I'm like, wait a minute. I could have sworn that a vote for Trump was a vote for Trump. That's how I thought that worked. Like, so you're saying if I vote third party, I vote for Trump? That's what you're literally saying? So then it should also work the same way in the other direction. Imagine if I was quote unquote a part of the Trump crowd and then I said, I'm voting third party. Well, any vote not for Trump is a vote for Biden. It should work the same way in reverse, shouldn't it? That means that by voting third party, I am both voting for Trump and voting for Biden at the same time, right? Like, but that doesn't make any sense. But they came up with these arguments because they had decided a long time ago they don't give a damn who the blue candidate is. They don't care. They did not care. Whoever the Democrats picked for the candidate, the presidential candidate, they were going to vote for them just to get Trump out. They had already decided this. That's dangerous. That's partisan. And it's dangerous. Reason why it's dangerous is because you've basically given your voting power away. If you've already pledged that you're going to vote for somebody just because of the letter next to their name, it means that they don't have to listen to anything that you want. So if you want things to actually change, you want, medicinal marijuana, you want a better healthcare system, you want less expensive colleges, or better yet, free colleges. Like, we all have policy desires that we want. You're not going to get any of that if you're just going to vote for whoever they put in front of you. Because whomever they put, best believe, if the Democrats put somebody in front of us, that person is not going to be aligned to the will of the average American. They're going to be aligned with Democratic leadership and whatever Democratic leadership wants to do. And what have they demonstrated that they want to do? They want to make their donors fat and happy and rich. They want to make Wall Street happy. They want to make Big Pharma happy. They want to... Who else do the Democrats get money from? They want to make the random liberal billionaires that buy up their politicians happy, like Michael Bloomberg and what's that dude's name? Tom Steyer? Yeah. We had 2 billionaires running in the Democratic primary. That says a lot. That says a lot. Both of them spent tens of millions of their own money self-funding their campaigns. Because to them, the politicians that the Democrats had put forward were not viable enough for them to be bought. That's a problem. We shouldn't have billionaires buying our candidates, or millionaires, or anybody. Every politician should be publicly funded, simply because the ideas that they put forward inspire people enough to donate to them monetarily. If you can't even do that, you don't deserve the vote. You don't. And let me tell you this. A lot of Democratic voters sat there and said, well, if the Republicans, if the Republicans are out here using billionaire money and voting for candidates that, come from the dumpster, why aren't we following suit? They're not playing fair. Why should we play fair? It ain't about fair. It's not about stooping to the level of your opponent and compromising the principles of the voters you're supposed to be trying to win over. Because over time, you might get some short-term victories, but you're going to lose the future generation. Because these kids see that the Democrats don't help neither. They saw that Obama didn't provide not a nary piece of change that he inspired us all that he would do in 2008. I was very happy to vote for Obama. But back in those days, I was a partisan. I watched MSNBC nonstop. Didn't watch CNN too much, but I watched a lot of Joe Scarborough, Rachel Maddow, all them dudes. Katie Halperin, all them dudes, like all them people. Andrea Mitchell, trying to remember the names. There was a lot of names on MSNBC back then. I used to watch all them guys. I used to let the TV play as I went to sleep. And when I woke up, I would hear it. You know what I'm saying? And everything that Obama did, they defended it. And they made the Republicans sound terrible, which they were. But everything that Obama did was good, and everything the Republicans did was bad. Obama could do no wrong on MSNBC. Now, if I was a right-wing voter and I was tuning into Fox at that time, it would have been the exact opposite. Everything the Republicans was doing was patriotic and was for the good of the country, trying to stop the president from ushering Sharia law and all this mess. And everything that Obama would have done would have been bad in their eyes. That's the problem. That's partisan. That is partisan. You can't be running around here thinking that everything that your lesser preferred party says and does is bad and terrible just on principle. Meanwhile, everything that your preferred party and or politician does is good on principle. That's not how that works. That's not reality. That is not objectively true. That is partisan propaganda drummed up by corporate media sources designed to whip you into a frenzy and make you mad and angry and scared and all this. Now, I've talked a lot about Democrats, but the Republicans are some of the most partisan folks ever. Uh, the average conservative voter has ingested tens of thousands of hours of propaganda at the hands of either Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, Newsmax, InfoWars, Ben Shapiro, all these guys. They've absorbed thousands of hours of their political bile, and the overwhelming majority of it is junk. Not because I disagree with it, it's objectively false. When you go and fact check their statements and check them up against reality, most of what they say is false. Very, very false. The best that you get from them most of the time is half true or mostly true. But even then, they leave out vital context that would give a different impression. Case in point, years ago I had a student, he was searching on his phone and he had found some politician's statement about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal. And he told me, oh my God, the Green New Deal says that, they're going to tax cows and cattle. Farmers are not going to be able to use cattle anymore. I said, what? Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me look at that. And so what I did was I actually looked up the Green New Deal. I pulled it up and I showed it to him. And I read through it with him. And nowhere did it mention anything about banning any cattle. Nowhere. And I told him, hey man, you can't be out here just be believing these politicians' statements, because the entire idea of what he did there was to try to make you react the way that you reacted. He had you, afraid and angry and stuff like that. That was his goal. That was the whole goal of what he did. I have the resolution right here. For starters, it's not a bill. So it's not like, even if this passed, it's not like it would be mandated. It's not mandated because it's not a bill. Second of all, it doesn't address cows at all. The word cattle doesn't even appear in the bill. And it doesn't say anything about banning cattle. Nothing. I mean, I'm reading it right here, where we got the joint right here. If it said something about banning cattle, you'd be able to see it right there somewhere. It's not here. So the dude just lied to you in order to make you mad. You know what I'm saying? And, he's a young kid, so, you know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't apologize or nothing. He sort of switched to another topic, because that's what a lot of partisans do. When you prove one of their points wrong, they quickly switch over and act like they didn't just waste your time with some fake ass information. But yeah, that's partisan rhetoric at work right there. And it has worked on conservatives for probably 20 years. Ever since Fox News became a thing, that is the partisan right-wing Republican network. That's what that is. And unfortunately, it has had a great effect on polarizing this country. And it is still having disastrous consequences even now, because you had a bunch of Trump voters storm the Capitol building on January 6th. I think it was either 5 or 6 people died, including some officers that the angry mob attacked and killed. Police had to shoot some of the protesters. They're not even protesters. They're, mob members. That wasn't no damn protest. It was an angry ass mob that tried to reinstall Trump as president because they had been lied to. So they had been lied to for years and years, been fed partisan garbage at the hands of Trump and all of their media. They had been told that the election had been stolen from them, even though a whole bunch of Republican governors in the states that Trump lost in sat there and recounted their votes and assured people, hey man, We had a fair election. Biden won, period. But they had been fed so much partisan drivel for all these years that they didn't believe it. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Because them being fed partisan propaganda made them so angry that they went and committed close to treason. It wasn't treason. It was more like sedition. They tried to do a coup in America. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to rewind this. Rewind a lot of this. I'm going to go back 20 minutes. There we go. All right. So, yeah. They were so stirred up by the propaganda that they had been fed that they mobilized, terrorized, and they killed people, and they would have killed more people. They were looking to hang Mike Pence because he had quote unquote betrayed Trump. They were going to hurt Democratic lawmakers. And when I say hurt, I really mean kill. Like, they would have probably stomped some Democratic lawmakers out and killed them right there on the spot. All because they were whipped into a frenzy at the hands of partisan hackery. And what's happening now? Right-wing media ain't saying shit about it. They're going to downplay this because they helped contribute to that by feeding into Trump's lies the entire time he was president. Now, some folks pushed back against it, but it wasn't that many. And their voices were drowned out by the hordes of partisan voices that appeared on Fox News and all those other right-wing sources that I referred to earlier. This shit is dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. Because now what has happened is people have been so susceptible to partisan hackery and propaganda that they've now decided to reject actual facts, especially when they're brought up by people on the other side. So when you have Democratic lawmakers or even just Democratic voting people bring up actual facts about how viruses work and how vaccines work and stuff like that, they're just dismissed by right-wingers because it's liberals talking, and liberals are stupid and they're lying and they're not telling the truth and all that kind of stuff. And this is, I mean, there's no way to understate how terrible all of this is. I can't overstate it, really. Because, especially since, using anecdotal experiences, I work in a Republican-ass district. A fair few of my students, not a fair few, the overwhelming majority of them come from Republican voting households. These guys wear Confederate flag belt buckles. Some of them have Trump political memorabilia, like Trump hats and wrist bracelets and stuff like that. This is the, tradition they come from. And my whole job as a teacher is to tell them the truth. How do you actually calculate the volume of a cube? It's side times side times side to the third power, because it's a cube. If I told them any other formula besides that, I would be giving them fake news, right? But, if these if they're getting to the point where they're rejecting truthful statements that they don't like, there's going to come a day where a student rejects something that I teach them outright because they don't like what I said. They don't like the fact that 3 to the second power is not 6. 3 to the second power is 9. And I fear that the day will come where someone's going to outright challenge that. And I'm going to have to sit there and make them look stupid in front of the whole class. And then possibly have them resent me for the rest of the year because I dared to tell them the truth. That is where we are headed in this society. Why? Because of partisanship. People being political hacks. And yes, it's really bad and prominent and noticeable on the right, with right-wing voters, because a lot of them, the overwhelming majority of them by nature, seem to be just partisan out the ass, right? But it's happening with Democratic voters too. They're behaving exactly the same way. If you bring up something bad that either Kamala Harris said or Joe Biden said, they wave it off and dismiss it like that's not what it is. Kamala Harris just went to she went to some either Central or South American country, and she got up on that stage and told them people, if you are a refugee seeking to come to the United States, don't come here. Don't show up to America because we're going to enforce our border safety laws and blah, 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 blah. What? If Trump had told people that, or Mike Pence had said something like that, my Democratic voting family members and friends would be up in arms about it. They'd be like, what the hell? Look at this racist shit Trump just said. He's hating on immigrants. And they would be right. But when Kamala Harris goes and says it, now they ain't got nothing to say. That's called hypocrisy, y'all. That's hypocrisy. If you believe in some policies for real, then you'll stand up for those policies no matter who stands against them. And I guess that's sort of the whole point of what I'm trying to say. When you participate in the political process, make sure you're doing so from a principled policy position. In other words, figure out what it is that you want. What policies do you want to be instituted into this country? And then advocate for those policies. And you find politicians who have had a storied history of defending and upholding those policies that you champion. It doesn't mean that they're going to be 100% match with you. It doesn't mean that they're going to be having a perfect voting record of voting for everything that you wanted. But you should be able to articulate why you're voting for somebody based on their actual history, what they have done, and what they have demonstrated. Right? You should be able to articulate what your political leaning is and why you lean that way. And it shouldn't just be based on feelings or religion or because they say things that I agree with. Yeah, it's called rhetoric. They're designed to do that. Every politician's going to have some rhetoric for you to agree with, but rhetoric and policy are two different things. Trump had a lot of rhetoric campaigning as president. His biggest thing that he said was he's going to put a wall between the U.S. and Mexico was going to pay for it. That was the rhetoric. But what was the policy? There was no damn wall. And whatever quote unquote wall or fencing that did go up was replacement fencing that was already scheduled to occur before he became president. That man barely put up any new wall at all. And They actually did do a border fund from the same voters that were told that Mexico would be paying for this wall. And guess what the voters did? They donated to it. They donated to this border wall fund that was supposed to be paid for by Mexico, according to Trump. So not only did he lie to them, he cajoled them out of money that wasn't going to go towards the thing that it said the money was supposed to be going towards. Because none of that money was used to do anything about a border wall. That all went to the Trump campaign's pocket. But do the voters give a damn? No, they don't, because they're so busy being partisan. They don't give a damn about policy. Okay? By policy, if you say that you're supposed to be some kind of conservative or whatever, vote for people that have conservative policies under their belt that they abide by. You know what I'm saying? I think I'm about done here. Yeah, let me, there we go. Full screen, fool. All right, yeah. So, if you say you're a conservative, don't vote for the guy that has a bunch of conservative ass rhetoric, but then governs as a moderate. You know? Vote for the person who has a record of instituting legislation that fits what you want. If you say you're a liberal, don't sit there and vote for the guy with the nice smile and the soothsaying words and the nice flowery speeches who then decides to govern as a moderate Republican. Yes, I'm talking shit about Obama because that's exactly what he did and what he was from an objective standpoint. Don't vote for that guy. Vote for the person that has a history of instituting liberal policies. You know, doing liberal legislation, advocating for it, fighting for it when it was popular and unpopular. You understand? And don't accept nothing less. If this person can't, you know, won't even vote the way you want them to vote, why do they deserve yours? Why? Because their opponent is too scary to fathom? Listen, we had 4 years of Trump. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it wasn't detrimental to the country, because it definitely was. And he definitely has blood on his hands. But legislatively, Trump didn't do that much. His biggest piece of legislation was the 2017 tax cut. That's it. For all that rhetoric he was talking, he could have and should have done much more damage to the country. And he did. Like I say, he did do a lot of damage. He did get 3 Supreme Court justices. And who knows what kind of damage that's going to do to the country. So perhaps, you know, the Trump presidency is like one of those slow-acting, venomous bites that takes a while to activate. But America is not dead just because of 4 years of one man. And anyone that's saying that is being a goddamn partisan, which is what I'm urging you not to be. Same way that 8 years of Obama did not destroy America. You know, even though I criticized him earlier for being a soothsaying politician, he actually did institute some decent policies, or at least policies that were better than what we previously had. Obamacare being the chiefest amongst them. Now look, Obamacare is still a very underwhelming healthcare system and mediocre at best, because it keeps the for-profit insurance companies, you know, operating and functioning, and still, you know, acting as a middleman between people and their doctors. But at least It stopped those companies from turning folks away because of pre-existing conditions. At least he got millions of people uh, insured that would not have been insured otherwise. That's a good thing. That's objectively good. And anyone pretending that it's not is being a goddamn partisan. Now, what did that mean that some healthcare plans kind of disappeared under Obamacare? Yes, it does. Some of them were not grandfathered into this new system. And so it was true that some people didn't get to go to the doctor that they used to go to, but that's because their plan used to cover basically nothing, but it was cheap as hell. And now they don't have that cheap as hell healthcare plan that doesn't cover anything. So they lost something that was cheap, but otherwise barely effective. But because they lost something, you know, they're gonna criticize Obama anyway. Okay. That's a little. That's at least a little bit more fair than just outright being partisan. But that's my problem. So many people have decided that they're just going to criticize a politician or a party and dislike anything they got to say just on principle. Now, there is an exception to this. If you have somebody that has a history of making false and erroneous statements, like every other thing they say is propaganda laden or just outright false to begin with, it's okay if you're just gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna ignore that guy because every time that dude says something, he lying all the goddamn time. Or if you're talking about a partisan pundit like Rachel Maddow or Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson or any of those guys like that, you know, that just, cape for the Democrats no matter what, or cape for the Republicans no matter what, it's okay to pre-dismiss the things that they got to say because they've tarnished and sullied their own reputations, right? But you don't then apply that to everybody in the damn party. You should at least give them the benefit of the doubt to at least double check to see if what they're saying has some degree of accuracy. And thanks to the World Wide Web, it's easier than ever to do that. There's this wonderful tool called a fact-checking website. PolitiFact, factcheck.org, Snopes, pick one, doesn't matter. You find an independent, nonpartisan fact-checking website, and if you're hearing some sort of claim that you want to verify the veracity of, you go and check it up against one of those websites or some other independent fact-checking website. And then you can see, are they telling me the truth or are they telling me something I want to hear and hoping that I just succumb to confirmation bias? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what you should do if you are trying not to be partisan. Otherwise, you're probably falling victim to propaganda. You're probably being told a whole bunch of shit that they think you want to hear, and you're going along with it saying, yes, 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 I agree. Yes, yes, I agree. Now take my vote. That's exactly what they want you to do. Don't do that. Don't be stupid. Okay? Don't be a partisan. Don't be a hack. Don't be biased. Seek the damn truth. Have some motherfucking principles. Have some policies that you want and are willing to remove your vote from a politician if they don't provide. Have some balls, basically. Have some balls, have some guts, even if you're a girl, okay? Have some balls, have some guts. Do not let these damn politicians politicize your ass into just doing what they want you to do. Just voting for them because, oh, You don't want to vote for that other guy. He's scary. He's this, he's that. All of those things might be true, okay? Like in the case of Donald Trump, both Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden basically sat there and told their voters, hey man, don't vote for him. He's a racist. He's a bigot. His voters are deplorables, blah, 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 blah. All of that is true. Well, I ain't going to say all of Trump's voters are deplorables. A lot of them just wanted to keep their jobs in America. And Trump told them that he'd keep their jobs there, so they voted for him. Simple as that. But my point is, you know, all those things that Hillary and Biden said about Trump were true, but that does not mean that because your opponent is bad, that does not mean that you are good. It does not mean that you deserve my vote. Because based on Hillary and the DNC screwing Bernie Sanders out of the vote, she did not deserve a damn vote that she got. And based on the fact that Biden is a lying piece of shit who also is a lot like Trump in the fact that he has a history of touching women and girls inappropriately and was even accused of rape like Trump, and he's a liar and he's thin-skinned and all this kind of stuff, and he's old as hell, okay? Based on all those Trump-like characteristics that Biden has, he didn't deserve nobody's vote neither. But he got the votes because people were cajoled into being politicized. They were cajoled into being a partisan, which is what I'm warning you about in this video. Don't be a damn partisan, y'all. Please don't be a partisan. Take the Ice Cube approach. Ice Cube, right before the election, came out and basically said, these Democrats and Republicans are playing with y'all. They don't have a plan for black people. Make them earn your vote. And he was right. But you know what happened when Cube said that? He was accused of being a Trump voter. He was accused of being a turncoat and being this and being that, and people were doing fake outrage at him and all this type of shit. He never said. He said straight up, I didn't decide who I'm voting for. I'm a true undecided voter. But I reached out to both campaigns to talk to me about what they're going to do for black people, and the Biden people said, we'll talk to you later. And the Trump people said, hey, we'll talk to you now. What was Ice Cube doing? Not being a partisan. He was not being a partisan. He was demonstrating what every American ought to be doing. Be skeptical, be critical, be analytical, be truthful about what you've analyzed. But worst, best of all, don't be a goddamn partisan. I can't say that enough. Don't put your blinders on because the people you like are speaking to you and saying things that you agree with. That's their job, is to put up rhetoric that you agree with and sort of inspire you and convince you that you should vote for them. But don't vote for them based on their words. Vote for them based on your policies that you want and their actual history of delivering their policies. And if you don't know what their history is, look at the money. Look at how they are funded. If a politician gains a lot of their political funding from millionaires and billionaires and industries and stuff like that, don't vote for their monkey ass. Do not vote for them, because they ain't going to listen to shit you got to say. They're going to listen to their donors. The donors are going to get their attention policy-wise over you all day long. Pluck. You know what I'm saying? So don't do that. Don't be a partisan. Vote for the person that's publicly funded. Vote for the person that is principled and has policies, a history of instituting the policies that you want. Don't settle for nothing less. And don't be afraid to withdraw your vote or vote for a third party until your political party does what you want them to do. Okay? So, just as surely as that sucker quit the match, I'm about to end this video. As I said, don't be a partisan, y'all. Peace.